1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Right? So there was a measure of 2, 4 in there. So how do you fix that? Right? So it's like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. Right? So at measure 2, we've got a measure of 2, 4. So right here in the ruler area, there's meter. So if you click on that and measure 2, make a measure of 2, 4. And then at measure 3, oops, let me get back into grid mode here. Want to get back to 4, 4. Click this again and go back to 4, 4. All right. 1, 2, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Right. 2, 3, 4. And what happens if right here I want a più mosso, which means a little faster? I can put the playback head right here, hit tempo, and I want a tempo change. I'm going to make that 72. All right, now, what if I wanted to do a gradual speed up in this measure to get to this measure here? Well, if you notice on the tempo ruler, there's a little triangle. Ah, a cajon. Very good, Luciana. If you click on that triangle, it opens up this whole, it's like an edit lane. And it has a slider over here, right? And if I use my pencil tool, I can draw in a tempo change like that that gets gradually faster. Actually, let's do it right here where these are faster notes. You'll be able to hear it a little bit more pronounced. So if I start here, we're at this slow, pedantic tempo of 60. See how we're getting gradually faster? So those are a couple of things that I hadn't taught you guys. And then if you want to get rid of it, you can just click and drag across there and delete. So how to add a tempo change and a meter change. All right. Now, the next bit, and this is going to be, the assignment's going to be due 2 weeks from today. And I'll write it out really specifically. So 2 weeks from today. So today's the 19th. So it will be due on the 2nd of November. So the musical blueprinting is due next week. And this will be due the following week. And this will be the last bit of MIDI stuff that we learn for the semester. So I have this little piece I wrote. What if I wanted to make a notation of this, right? Well, if we go down here to our edit window, right here you see that there's a 2/16 notes. If you click on that, it brings up a notation window, right? And that looks like garbage. So we have to do some editing to fix it. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to imagine that this is like your masterpiece. You finished this. This is the greatest thing that you've ever written. We're going to play like it is. And then we're going to make a version that we use for notation. So I'm going to save test, right? Now what I want to do is I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to save as, test notation prep. Right, so I'm saving a separate version for notation. And I'm leaving my original version alone. All right, so when we look at notation, right, we see that there are all sorts of rests, note lengths that aren't the right length, right? It's just really overly, it is notating exactly what I played, right? But what I play isn't always what you read on the page. So there's two things you have to, there's a bunch of steps you have to take. So if I right click on the word mini grand up here in the tracks list, the bottom selection here is notation display track settings. Right? And if you had 50 tracks, you could select each track, any track. And you can select your staff. So this is mostly for graduate students and undergraduate students. You're going to do an easier version of this assignment. So I could put everything to treble staff, and then you've got all those ledger lines. I could put everything into bass clef. Then you have the opposite. I could put everything into alto clef. If you're a viola player, that's great. And tenor clef. So we're going to leave grand staff because it's piano. Now, you've got these global settings. The display quantization. You can change this to all these different note settings. Now, let me take a listen to this. So I'm not playing anything faster than an eighth note here. Yeah. So I can make my quantization an eighth note. And you see how it's automatically looks a lot better? Right? So this is 16th note. And this is eighth note. So that cleans up some of it. But you still have, this should be this should be a quarter note here. You've got some weird spacings. There are some things that you're not going to be able to fix in Pro Tools. All right. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look at my piece. And I'm going to see here that my right hand is playing stuff that doesn't go below G in the bass clef. So if this is set, the split point between the staves is set to C3. So if I click and drag that down to G2, now it's starting to look a little better, except for this one here should really be in the left hand. But there's another way around that, which I'm going to get to in a minute. But let's leave this like this for now. Let's go back to our grid. Or actually, let's look at this. Let's go to slip mode. Huh. It won't allow me to change it. All right. So there's a couple of things we can do here. So if I select all, and then I right click on this and event operations, if I change duration, right? I played with the sustain pedal. Right here, transform sustain pedal to duration. Now watch what happens to this note here. And then I'm going to delete the sustain pedal after the transforming because this one's just for notation. You see that? Now we're starting to look even better. That's looking pretty good. I haven't changed the way I've played this. Oh, interesting. I got rid of the sustain pedal there. And those got choppy, but the notation looks better. Okay. That's one way that you can clean things up. I'm going to fix this bit right here and a few other spots where the left hand is now in the right hand in a moment. But let's do this. Let's go back here. And let's undo. I'm going to do Command Z and undo some of those things. All right. I'm going to go Option 0. And remember I said eighth note was the fastest note value I played. So I'm going to select eighth note. And I'm not only going to quantize the notes where they start, I'm also going to quantize the duration. So if I go note off, right? It's gotten me now. That's better, right? Still not completely right, but that's better. Now let's go here. All right, so we see that right here, these two should be quarter notes, but they're eighth notes. So I'm going to just select these all, and I'll just use my trimmer tool and drag them out. Same with this. Or actually, I could just highlight these. I believe that these should all be quarter notes. Yeah. So I'm holding down. Let me just switch keys. Switch cameras here. So I'm holding down the Shift key, and I'm going to lasso all these notes that should be quarter notes, right? And then I'm going to do Option P, brings up change duration. So I'm going to set all to 1 beat. There we go. And down here, I'm just going to clean these up. Oh, these also are too short right here, right? Make those into quarter notes. Also into quarter notes. And these need to be, so I'm just dragging these in to fill in the gaps. I could tell by looking at the piano roll, right? And then this last bit, these actually last till the end of the measure, everything that's here. So I'm just going to select all those and drag them all out to the beginning of bar 9. And I might even just have this sustain across. Okay, now let's look at our notation. Let's highlight that, Option P, and I'm going to make that 8 beats long. Boom. And now we have something that looks much better. Let's see. I'm going to change this one, holding the Shift key down and selecting that, Option P. So that should be 1 beat and an eighth note, which is 480. And apply. And there, that's looking better. And then now we still have this issue here. There's two ways of dealing with that. You could send it to Sibelius and fix it. How do you record automation of expand? Oh, that's a good question. All right, I'll go over that in a second, Wander. Right, so that, yes. So that's how you clean that up. Now, to export that as notation, you have to go here to the score editor, right? And then you would title this Stupid Tune by me. You could change so it's landscape, portrait, you can make it letter, legal, right? You have all your options here. And then print score. And then you'd open this up, save as PDF. And yeah, where did that go? That's weird. Let me just, give me 1 second. Okay, so if I open that up in preview, okay, this is something that has never happened before in Pro Tools with me. Print score, save as PDF, right? Stupid Tune. All right, so let me just do a search. Where did this, right? So I saved it, and now let me look for it. Oops. Wow, it did not export it as a PDF. That is so bizarre. I've been doing this for years. Huh. That really is horrible. Well, there's a couple of ways to skin the cat, right? I could take a screenshot of that, and there I have something. But that's really weird. I don't understand why where that went to, and why you can't print that out anymore and save it as a PDF. I've been doing that for years. The alternative is that you can go to the score editor, and once you're in the score editor, you can export to Sibelius. And then this will open up in Sibelius. Okay, and then I can just open this up in Sibelius. But I don't understand why you can't print this anymore. I'm going to have to look that up. That is something new, and I've never had in all the time I've been teaching this, and also that I've been using it. So this will open up in Sibelius. I don't need to do that now. That's time consuming. All right. So In Class 5's folder, you're going to find a bunch of notation practice thingies. Now, for undergraduate students that can read music, sequence just from right up to here. I'll write this out, right? So it's just the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, the first 16 bars. It's very simple. Don't go all the way to the end. And then get it looking good for notation and send me the Pro Tools session, and I'll be able to check it out. Graduate students, you can do up to letter B of I Don't Know How to Love Him. So piano and melody. Or you can do up to the double line, the second double line to the più allegro of this Bartók Romanian folk dance. So that means you'd have to sequence it and then get it to look good in notation. For those of you that can't read music, and this is on the honor system, all right? I have something here called an SMF. I can go here and I can import MIDI. And you see with this .mid file, open that.
Professor, your camera.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you. Let me just move this. The Zoom screen was covering the my OBS screen. Okay, so you can't read music. I've got this right here, Schumann Chorale SMF. All right, that stands for Standard MIDI File. You could take this standard MIDI file and open it up in any DAW, GarageBand, Logic, Cubase, Reaper, Ableton, Digital Performer. We're going to open it up into Pro Tools. So we open up a session, and then we have to import MIDI, navigate for that SMF, open it up. You want to import the tempo. I don't know if I put a key signature. I'm going to have to show you how to do that. And locate at the session start. And it's going to go on an instrument track. Okay, so there are too many tracks here, right? So I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, so what I've done here, and this is why it'll be if you can't play it in, I got to make it a little bit trickier for you to do. You're going to open this up, right? And if you can print this out, that'll be helpful. You're going to try to make each one of these look like this. So what do I mean by that? Okay, the first thing is that this piece is a piano piece, right? So there's a right hand and a left hand. So, right, there's a right hand and a left hand. So the right hand needs to be in the treble. And what I've done is I've taken each one. There's 4 notes playing at a time, except for right here in this piece and right here. I've taken each one of these notes and put it onto its own track. So in other words, it's like a choir. The soprano is the top line. The alto is the next is the middle line on the top staff. The tenor is the top line on the bottom staff. And the bass is the bottom line on the bottom staff. So what we have to do is we have to go here and we have to make this look a little differently. So I'm going to right click. Whoops. So let me also, this red dot here, just click on that and turn that off, and then this will stay up. So I'm going to right click here, and I'm going to go to Notation Display Track Settings. So my soprano should be on the treble staff. My alto should be on the treble staff. My tenor should be on the bass staff clef, and my bass should be on the bass clef. All right, so you're looking better. Now, we got some problems over here. So you have to go through each one of these tracks and clean this up. Now, the other thing to do with this and with the Bartok and everything else as well is as a key signature. So this has 1 sharp. That's what this is. Let me make this a little bigger so it's easier for you to see. Right here, this has 1 sharp, okay? So we don't have anything here that lets us put in a key signature. Well, we have to add it to the ruler. So if we go here to where it says bars and beats and we click, right, we get a new drop-down menu and we've got our key. And that adds another line to our ruler. And if we are at measure 1 and we click here, see there's with 1 sharp. Just select that. Hit OK, and you see it adds it right to the notation, and it adds it into the timeline here. So you guys that are doing the Bartok, that's in D major, so you just add D major at the beginning. All right. This is due in 2 weeks. So just an introduction. Next week I'll go over some of the stuff again, so it's fresh for you. All right. But if you are done with the fingerprinting and you want to get started on this, be my guest. So Wander has a question. How do you record automation of expand? So can you expand upon that question? Like, what do you want to record? What do you want to automate?
So in the last homework assignment, I was trying to, like, after I played it back, I was playing with the cutoff feature on expand.
Oh, and you want to know how to automate that? Okay.
Right, without just penciling it in. How do you just like run through it but record? Like, I had it mapped onto a knob.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. Okay, let me. I'm going to do it both ways to show everybody else in the class. All right. So let's do this. I'm gonna get rid of these. I'll hide and make it active, and I'll put expand in here. All right. So this is just a choir patch, right? Now.
Can you change the screen?
Oh, thank you. I'm so sorry. I'm a little. It's like I taught a class before this, and I just sort of. Yeah. Never mind. Okay. Thank you, Caitlin. Appreciate it. And everyone, please let me know when I haven't changed the screen. I'm trying to stay on top of this stuff. All right. So I've got this little. Now, what Wander is talking about is that he wants to automate the cutoff frequency. So what do I mean by that? He wants to be able to do something like this and have it play back. All right? Now, the first thing, if you don't have a controller like or your MIDI keyboard doesn't have knobs and sliders like this, my MIDI keyboard I have this Yamaha, which has great piano action. I love the way it feels under my hands, but it doesn't have good sliders and faders that are assignable. I have this little cheap Korg Nano control that I use, and it works perfectly well. So if you don't have one of these, I'm going to show you how to do this. So you right-click, and it says, forget MIDI CC21. That means that MIDI CC, what's called MIDI CC, which stands for control change, but everybody calls it continuous controller now. MIDI CC is set to channel 21. All right. So, excuse me. If we click down here on our edit window, MIDI editor, and open up one of these lanes, let me make this a little bigger so you can see it. If I click on this and I go down to where it says controllers, it says add and remove controllers, right? So that was, remember, it was 21. So I make sure that I'm on my soprano, because that's the track that's up, and I'm going to go 21, and I'm going to add, and I'm going to click OK. Now if I go here and go back down to controllers, 21 has been added. Now it doesn't add the name, and there's no way to rename that. You just have to remember that it's 21. And that brings up 21 here, and then I can just use my pencil tool to draw in some automation as I want, right? And if it plays back, watch the cutoff and listen. See, the cutoff is moving. Now, you can automate, and you should learn how to automate, because automate and to animate is a phrase of mine. It is how you make your music come alive, and we're going to get into a little bit of that when we, work on mixing the pieces that, the piece that we record that has audio in it. Right. So tangentially, there's going to be the notation project, and then I'm going to assign the final right after that, and it's going to be due in December, and we're going to work on it for like 5 or 6 weeks, and it's going to be recording audio as part of it. But now, what happens, what he said was, let me undo that. What if I have it mapped to a controller? How do you map it to a controller? Well, first you have to record, enable the track, and then if you click on this, you want to forget MIDI CC21. You don't want MIDI CC21 doing that unless you've got your controller mapped to MIDI CC21, which I don't. Oh, actually, I do have. Well, it doesn't matter. Let's say I don't, right? And now when I go click on this, it says, again, learn MIDI CC. So if I twirl this knob here, hold on a second. Learn MIDI CC. I'm actually going to use, right? I'm moving this slider. It is learn that this controls this. Now, if you just start recording right now, you're going to erase these MIDI notes. Let me show you what I mean. You see how they're getting erased? So let me undo that. Let me open up Expand again and put that over here. Up here in your recording controls, this one between the metronome and the conductor is called MIDI merge. That means that you can record MIDI on top of MIDI without erasing it. So I'm going to set my slider up at a low value. And then I hit 1, 2, 3, 4. And it recorded it to 3, because that's what this was set to. You see that? And then you can go back and fix that up a little bit. And like it starts off with no volume, which I don't like. So this is how you add life to your performances, by doing stuff like this, by animating and automating this. I get into more of this stuff in Audio MIDI 1 and Audio MIDI 2. This is a basic introductory class. And, you know, it's actually beyond the purview of this class to teach this particular technique. Does that answer your question, sir? MIDI merge is your friend.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Okay. So we went over a lot of material today. Everybody's okay with the... everybody was able to read... I put up a very detailed brief on the homework, the musical blueprinting, which I think made it a little bit clearer in terms of what I expect from the assignment. Everybody is good with that? Yay, nay, thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, great. I think it's a very interesting assignment, and I think it's really a good way to learn about what puts a piece of music together. You know, I was playing some Talking Heads before the class, and one of my favorite bands of all the time. And when I was an undergraduate at Queens College, I went to see them twice. Once out at CUNY Stony Brook. Actually, I went and looked up the date. It was I think it was November 19th, 1979, believe it or not. And a bunch of us from Queens College went out there to SUNY Stony Brook to see them. And then I saw them in the city at some place, which I can't remember the name of it. And I love them. I hadn't listened to them in ages. And there's one song that I really like, which is the first song on their Remain in Light album. And, you know, there's just so much stuff going on because of the way that they recorded that album, which was so different than anything they had done previously. And so, you know, even, you know, this morning I spent about 15 minutes. I was just writing out who was playing what where to try to figure out like how this whole thing was put together and to study it and just to learn a little bit, take a lesson from it. And maybe someday I'll incorporate something like that in a piece I write. So I still do musical blueprinting, and it's a great way to learn about how music is put together, especially if you're not studying music theory and all that stuff, because I think that I was fortunate when I was an undergraduate that in the music department at Queens College was incredibly intellectually based, right? We had this really in-depth study of counterpoint and harmony and musical analysis. So I had 5 or 6 semesters of music theory and 2 semesters of what's called Schenkerian analysis, taught by this amazing teacher and musician named Carl Schachter. I mean, this teacher was so insane in a good way that he was talking about this piece of Beethoven, and he was just animated talking about it, and then he just reached behind him with his hands opposite and started playing it while he was talking to us with his hands behind his back, which means that like his left hand was playing what his right hand should be playing, and his right hand was playing what his left hand should have been playing. And he just did this like spur of the moment. And we all were sitting there with our jaws dropped. But it was incredibly intellectual. And we studied this thing called species counterpoint, which is, again, an incredibly difficult, intellectual, rules-based way to learn how to write contrapuntal music. And we analyzed Bach chorales to learn how to do four-part harmony writing. But at some point, I had this one professor, Professor Berkowitz, my main teacher that I missed dearly. And he said to us in class one day, look, this is the curriculum. You have to learn this stuff. But when it's time to write music, just get the sound in your ear and let your intuition lead you. And when you're doing the musical blueprinting, you know, if you don't understand where the chords are going and all this other stuff, you're getting the sound and you're understanding where things are placed in the timeline, and you're getting a feel for it. You're getting the sound of it in your ear, and you're learning how to listen on a different plane at a different level. And I think that that's a really good way to learn as well as the academic intellectual study of music. I think they complement each other really well. Okay, so I've about had it for today. Are there Otto Botto? Somebody just texted me privately, Otto Botto, which is a palindrome. There was a guy named in Manhattan, this Carl Schachter, this professor. He was really into palindromes. Is that what it is? Where the word reads the same forwards and backwards. There's a guy in Manhattan at that time. His name was Otto Botto, and if you read it backwards, it's the same. It's like UFO Tofu, which is the name of an album by Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, where they're playing. The whole song is about musical palindromes. Okay, so enough of that inane ranting and off-topic stuff.